Hello and welcome back. Today is the intake and engine overview. Let's get going here. When I was doing this particular build session, I was just having a really hard time. Spring break had just ended, my head wasn't quite into doing the build, and as a result I was having a really hard time, just nothing was going together right. You don't see it here in the beginning, but as we progress through the build, it will become self-evident. Anyways, the build of the engine intake is a pretty straightforward build. First, you need to mount the casting of the forward intake, I guess is what it is. These engines aren't built to real life, so it's really hard to tell what it really is. But the forward section of the engine needs to be mounted on the ring section of the assembly. That was the first thing I did not do in this build. But as I go over this, you'll see what I did. The intake build, after mounting the engine into it, is pretty much straightforward box assembly. Just fold it, close it, make sure the engine's glued in quite securely. Here we are, I'm getting ready to start on the opposite side of the engine intake. It was at this point that I made my realization that I messed up. I did not glue the forward engine into the ring assembly, so I had to take it apart and start all over again. Also, on this particular model, the etching didn't quite go through on the other side of the intake, so you had to clear that out with the razor blade. Having poor etching is not uncommon. It does happen. It's just a process. Sometimes something just doesn't stick right or get processed properly or whatever. But that's pretty much it for the intake there. There's nothing real special about them. The main engine assembly, on the other hand, the two halves of the engine are glued and they sandwich a frame section. Now, the castings are really rough on the back end, so they need to be what's called faced. You pretty much take sandpaper and put it on a flat surface, and you sand the joining faces of the engine flat so that they will bond together on a smooth plane. That being said, the engine assembly and housing assembly are very finicky pieces. It takes a lot of work, a lot of finagling, and a lot of just coaxing to get the pieces to fit in right. I had a very hard time on this build because I kept on getting confused on which side is left and which side is right. Also, when you start getting the main housing or the lower leg assembly, pay attention to what piece you use. Remember, when you're gluing it flat on a table, you want the detailed side be facing down. If you're gluing it and you can see detail, you have the wrong side. But that being said, the assembly of the engine wasn't very difficult. It just required a lot of finesse and finagling. Part is the thrust nozzles / feet assemblies. Those pieces are very straightforward to assemble and fold. The assembly of the feet aren't very difficult. You take them out and you fold them into a channel. After you get them folded, you have to fold the little details that make up the nozzle assembly. Once you have everything folded and bent in the correct positions, they insert into the lower leg assembly. They are connected by taking the tabs and folding them out and back. These tabs are interlocked with each other so that the feet can only open up so far. They can't open up all the way unrestricted. This is not a big issue as the model does not transform and it will not stand up, so the feet remain closed as it is in jet form. After the feet were installed, I went on to install the landing gear. The landing gear are pretty much a straightforward setup as most models go. Nothing special to talk about. Just takes a little bit more finesse because it is a smaller metal detail, and that was pretty much it. After you have everything assembled on the lower leg, it is time to join the intake and lower leg assemblies. They are bonded at 4 points that slot into each other. After I had them glued, I set them down on the table to let them cure nice and flat. That way the model will have a flat plane to bond to. After everything was said and done, I had both sides completed, just set them out, and there were some little details that I had to do that were off camera. There was mostly the little nodes up on the intake assembly and the little the stabilizing vanes that go on the lower assembly of the leg. Also, sometimes when you do a build and you have a bad day, remember, everyone has them. Everyone from a beginner to a straight up professional. The next step will be the head and arms and the final assembly of the model. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like it if you like it, dislike it if you didn't, and have a good day. Bye.